I got a call. We got an email from our dear friend Kevin Jackson, who you know from the Black Sphere Online. He is a brilliant media talent that you see on Megyn Kelly and all the news show, Kevin Jackson. And he's a friend. Proud to call Kevin Jackson my friend. We got an email saying, Joe, you got to talk to Michael Johns. Michael Johns is a healthcare executive. He's a Tea Party leader, former White House speechwriter, Heritage Foundation policy analyst. You got to talk to Michael Johns. So we bring Michael Johns to the airwaves. And you know what, Michael, you got a great recommendation from a man I have immense respect for, Kevin Jackson. So welcome to the program.
He's a great guy, isn't he?
He's
a great guy, isn't he?
He's
I first
funny.
met him out in Illinois. We had a big Tea Party event out there. I had never heard of him before.
Yeah.
I was one of the 22 co-founders of the Tea Party movement in 2009, and so I've gotten to know through it, even though I've been involved in politics, a lot of extraordinary people and new political leaders, and I would sort of put him in that role, and he's just an incredible voice of, I think, reason in this increasingly insane world. And I'm sorry to hear you didn't have a better Valentine's Day, Joe.
You don't want to hear it, man.
You are a long-standing hero of mine. I grew up in high school in Pennsylvania, watching Saturday Night Live, hearing, we used to do your impressions down the halls in school, and you have been a source of many a laugh in my teenage and 20s, and it's an honor. And I certainly hope, being a New Jersey resident, having worked for a prior governor here, Tom Kean, that you actually do pursue some political aspirations here, because you are beloved in the Garden State.
Michael, you're very kind. Did you work with Tom Kean, the former governor of New Jersey? Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Now you really got Kevin Jackson on one side. I got Tom Kean on the other. Forget about how great a man is Tom Kean. And we want to talk to you about politics and about the Tea Party, Michael. But really, on Tom Kean, the former governor of New Jersey, former co-chairman of the 9/11 Commission, how great a man is this guy?
He's really extraordinary, and I think what I loved most about him was the genuine commitment, really in kind of a nonpartisan way, to addressing the problems confronting the country. So I worked with him on education. I got him involved, actually, with for the first time in a major way with global affairs. He's on the board of National Endowment for Democracy, which was involved in supporting democracy in non-democratic countries abroad, and a good deal with it. He chaired, as you may recall, Low Income Housing Commission, and was a really extraordinary voice in just this broad range of issues. And his, I think, really one of the best governors we had in the state. I think he won originally, but one of the most narrow victories in New Jersey electoral history, and then was reelected by one of the largest majorities in the history of the state. And that was a sign to the fact that he reached out to everyone. That's really what I liked about him.
Yes, he did.
That's my perspective on politics, too, is that we need to break away from these artificial barriers that keep us apart as Americans. And I believe, as a conservative, that our message is appealing to any and all Americans. And if it's not, we got to go back to the drawing table and figure out why.
You know what, Michael? And on this program, I'm a former lifelong Dem, now an independent, frustrated with the Democrats, and frankly, I'm frustrated with the Republicans, and we're right down the middle now. And when you hear Tea Party, and I always use the word vilify. You guys are vilified, but then you guys make a lot of sense in many regards. And could you just, in a very pragmatic way, tell us where the Tea Party stands today? And why some people hate it, some people love it. I mean, what are your feelings, and how do you walk that line, Michael?
Well, when we launched this movement in 2009, as you may recall, there was a reporter on CNBC who had done a big rant from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange about maybe it's time for a new Tea Party. A number of us saw this, and it's almost, in my view, almost divine inspired. We were brought together on this conference call. And one of the first things I said, and I think it was echoed by almost everyone on that call, was that we wanted to represent principles that were so foundational to American exceptionalism and to American democracy that almost anyone of sound reason would be attracted to them. So to answer your question, the founding principles were really limited government, right? A government that existed in adherence to our Constitution, what our founders really envisioned our government doing, and not doing those things that it's not envisioned to do. Low taxes. The Tea Party movement, we also like the TEA, which, is an acronym we used for taxed enough already, being overtaxed Americans. Any working American can sympathize with that.
God, yeah.
And then adherence to our Constitution. And the one thing I have found really among the Tea Party movement is a great love of America. And you raised another good question. Well, it sounds so practical and reasonable. Why the opposition? Good question. I think the opposition is because as we went about championing these three fundamental themes, we found ourselves at odds with this administration. And unfortunately, even though we are a nonpartisan movement and are welcoming really of anyone who can subscribe to those three ideals, we clashed. We clashed on Obamacare. We clashed on clearly on these executive orders, which I think are utterly unconstitutional. We have clashed in the Iran deal and foreign policy, and just a broad range of things that I think many Americans have concerns about. And so we're kind of entering a 2.0 version. Kevin and I are leading a group called Tea Party Community, which is it's a social media site predominantly, and we got about 150,000 members involved. We're hoping to get that up to about 1 million, and we really want to take the Tea Party movement to the next level of not just political influence, but hopefully of educational influence, in the sense that we're enlightening the American people about our founders and the founding documents and how they apply in the 21st century America, because they still do apply.
Look at it. We're talking about Michael Johns from the Tea Party. It's Piscopo in the morning, 7:36. We're going to go a little longer here because Michael's got a lot to say, and I know we got to go to break, Al. But I got to tell you, Michael, see, the way you laid that out, and you know what? We had Bernie Sanders on the show, and I had Bernie Sanders twice on the show. I had Charlie Rangel. I got Wesley Clark. I got Chris Matthews on the show. Sure, we're going to listen to everybody, and I'm not going to rant. Michael Johns, I'm not going to rant, and I'm not going to be, I'll tell you what you should do and what's wrong and what's right. I'll tell you what I feel personally, but you know what? The audience is smart enough to make up their own mind. And the way you lay out the Tea Party here makes all the sense in the world. And before, indeed, we let you go, Michael Johns, I got to feel what you're saying about the death of Antonin Scalia. This is a major blow to conservatives everywhere, Michael.
Yeah.
Tell me what his passing means for the court before we let you go, Michael. The passing of Antonin Scalia. Yeah, please.
I wrote an article last night.
Terrific
because
article.
I think in our called The Legacy of Antonin Scalia, and I think as I look kind of at modern icons of American conservatism, of libertarianism, I think he ranks right up there. He ranks up there with some of the best minds I think that we have had in this country, and I put him in the list with Ayn Rand and Buckley and Russell Kirk and Whittaker Chambers and Reagan, even, who obviously appointed him in 1986. And if I think I heard you mention earlier, which I am in complete agreement with, that if you go through and actually read his dissents and his writings over the 30 years he was on the court, the one common denominator, the one recurring theme is that the Constitution means what it says. What a practical concept, right? Just that everything within that Constitution should be interpreted literally, and nothing should be applied to the Constitution that is not within the Constitution. And so, you go through some of the major opinions that he weighed in on. I think of the D.C. versus Heller case, where he spoke out in defense of Second Amendment rights when Washington, D.C. was essentially going to almost ban the registration of handguns. Clearly, I think even on the same-sex marriage issue, it was not, to his mind, an issue of sexuality or anything of that nature. It had to do with whether the Constitution itself afforded that court, that Supreme Court, those 9 unelected people to redefine the institution of marriage. And of course, he viewed that was not the case. And then I thought, if you think back, there's so much that he did, but he was in the Boumediene versus Bush and Hamdi versus Rumsfeld. He was a very vocal opinion that foreign combatants, essentially Al-Qaeda members and others that we had at Guantanamo, should not be afforded constitutional rights that would be afforded to U.S. citizens, since they're essentially prisoners of war.
Yeah,
and of course, we've moved in the wrong direction on that issue. So he's going to be he's a great Italian American, which you must have.
Thank you, Michael Johns, for noticing that. You know what? But it's very true about Anthony Scalia. His character and purity and his belief in the Constitution of the United States of America is just so front and center. Yeah. When you look, you'll
love this. I read somewhere over the weekend he had asked his law clerk at one point to go to church with him, and I think they went to church pretty regularly. They're both former Catholics. Yep. And I guess he couldn't make it one week, and Scalia emailed him back. He said, "I shall tell the creator of the universe you were too busy to see him." And I just think, in this day and age also, isn't it laudable that this was a guy who didn't run from his Christian faith, and I think that was another
devout
thing that
Catholic.
A lot of us,
indeed.
Yeah,
Michael Johns. I'm going to send a note of thanks to Kevin Jackson. Thanks for coming on the air. Come back again,
Joe. Anytime. I'm a fan.
Thanks, brother. And we'll talk to you soon, Michael Johns.
I know
it's
17 degrees. It's a Monday. It's 17 degrees out.
Yeah.
But the sun is going to rise.
That's right, man. Hey, we love it. We're New York, New Jersey. We love it. Thank you, Michael Johns. Piscopo in the morning. It's so.